So death penalty is probably the only social issue I could actually see other people's opinions on as being valid, because a lot of times you actually have individuals who have, in their own ways, suffered some type of tragedy or loss or just situation that would prompt them to support it. Now, I personally oppose it just because I really don't think taking a life for another life does anything to bring back the life that was already taken. That being said, this isn't like opposition to same-sex marriage. I look at the person, how could you even think that way? But I really think it's one of the few issues where arguments on both sides can be valid in a credible sense without appearing to be bigoted or prejudiced. And for that reason, I tend to not really let differing opinions with it clash, because I personally just oppose to the point where I think it should be abolished. But there are some people who oppose it in certain cases, or support it in very extreme cases. There are so many different types of ways people look at that issue. And what needs to be done, really, I think at this point, is to have maybe some type of nationwide poll, or kind of just something that can indicate whether or not most people support or most people oppose it. Because that way you can have a law by the Supreme Court that does essentially for this social issue what it did for same-sex marriage back in June. So really, I think there's no right or wrong way to look at views of the death penalty, but to really take into account people's backgrounds and see if that influences their, I guess, gravitation towards whatever view they have of it. I personally um, I've never experienced that type of loss before, but I still don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, I'm fine with this person getting killed. I'm fine with this person, dying or being sentenced to death. And it's really not something I want to partake in. So if you had a court or a jury that decided that, or sentenced some, a juror or a judge who sentences a convict to the death penalty, or to death, under the death penalty, I would I wouldn't really be opposed to it, because then that was a choice of those who presided over that case. I'm saying if I was personally involved, I would have an issue with it, because I wouldn't be in the way of someone else's, uh, I guess, way of redeeming the life that was lost, or getting past the pain they had at that time, which is, I guess, a way many people who look at the death penalty sort of see it as, kind of, an eye for an eye, which that's really how I view it, and that's what leads me to be against it. Because if you kill one person for killing another person, it's going to be this pattern of killing people for killing people. I don't see who's that helping. We're just diminishing ourselves. And the other argument could be that, well, if we don't kill them, they're just going to stay in prison and rot away and take up space and time on the earth. But my argument in that case would be, even if that's the case, let them suffer. They're not going anywhere. They're staying in prison. Because think about it like this: on prison, we have it to where, or in prison rather, uh, inmates are made. There are no luxuries of being in jail. The food out here isn't that good. It's just nothing. All the prison rape stories and everything. So there's really no luxury to being in that type of institution. So when you keep them in the institution where there is no luxury, that we know there is no luxury, uh, you really don't run the risk of them potentially having luxury in the afterlife. They talk about the 70 virgins, and how Satan rewards good behavior. I don't know, just all kinds of different stories about what what's in the next world, what's in the afterlife. And when you have people with so many different religious beliefs and views on the afterlife, I think you can actually bring them together by focusing on the fact that we don't know what happens after we die. We don't know what happens after this world. So I just think ultimately it ends up being being a issue that people have to come together on, have to find some common ground on. There are certain crimes where I kind of say, wow, that's really bad. Just I don't like, but every time I feel any kind of backing on my view, I just think of the possibility of people who are wrongfully convicted of crimes having to die for a crime they did not commit. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case, but that possibility always troubles me. It never goes away. It always just sticks me. Every time I say, "Oh, I might change my view," there's always the possibility that somebody somewhere is in prison over a crime they didn't commit and could potentially die over it. And that I think is as tragic as the crime that has put them in jail and really the lives that are lost, and that of which is probably the most propelling reason for why people support it. But I don't see any reason to give any type of accommodation to murderers and other people who face the death penalty, uh, in allowing them to go to the afterlife and potentially have peace. So I just in conclusion see staying in the living world as the best type of punishment for someone that commits a heinous crime.